Welcome to the Catapult Effect, a podcast where professionals like you turn challenges into opportunities for extraordinary growth. If you're tired of struggling, feeling lost, and ready to catapult yourself into the best version of you, then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Katie Wrigley.
Welcome to the Catapult Effect podcast. I have with me today a dear friend of mine, Cari Moffet, and she has been in the wellness industry since 1996. She has used her gifts and talents of massage therapy, energy work, medical intuition, life coaching, cognitive movement, which is how I met Carrie, and meditation to relax and recharge a client's mind, body, and spirit. In 2008, she started her company Whole Life Wellness and opened a wellness center in her hometown of Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, Canada, where she currently resides. Carrie's also an author, and she published her first book entitled It's All About Energy, and it became an Amazon #1 bestseller in 2 categories. She has another book now that is entitled It's Still All About Energy, and it is a continuation of these teachings in an even deeper way. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling. She and I almost came so close to running into each other in Salem, Massachusetts last week. She also loves playing the piano and the saxophone, pottery, reading, paddling her kayak on the northern Saskatchewan lakes, and spending time with family and friends. Welcome to the Catapult Effect podcast, Carrie. It's so awesome to have you join me.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks so much for having me.
So we were talking before we began recording about energy, because that's what Carrie's books are all about. And I've read Carrie's first book. I haven't read her second book yet, but that is on my list of readings to be doing very shortly. And I carve out time every day to make sure I read. And Carrie's book is next on my list, actually, after I finish the one that I'm on now. And what I really loved about It's All About Energy is if you are where I used to be and you don't really understand the impact of energy, Carrie does this beautiful way of writing and really breaking it down by sharing some of her practical stories. So I want to start there, Carrie, and actually talk about what started to get you really noticing the impact and the importance of energy.
It was likely in my massage practice, and I just retired from 26 years of being a massage therapist. And when I was working on bodies, the energy was always, of course, in and around a client's body. And I found myself saying the same things over and over. And I probably had the notion of, I should just put all this in a book, and then when they have questions on their 5th chakra, I can refer them to chapter 4 or something like that. And so I had the idea, but I never acted on it for quite a few years until I met, it was a lady online, Leonie Dawson. She's Australian, and she said, write a book in, I think it was 30 days. And I kind of just took it as a challenge, and I thought, well, let me try this, because I didn't really believe you could do that. And it took me 27 days, and everything was written. Now knowing a little bit about writing a book, they say we have about 3 in us, and it doesn't take that long to get it out. You just got to write. So that's a little bit of how that journey started.
Oh, that is so cool. I've actually started to write my own book this year.
Oh, good.
Probably dedicate a little bit more time per day, but I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, at least I'm writing right now, and as cycles open up, then I can write more. But yeah, I'm taking that daily action, like you said, to start to get it written. So we were talking about the fact before we came on, and I really want to have a discussion around this, is I had said that I married someone that was a huge mistake, and you giggled and said, I don't think it was a mistake at all. And I understand why you're saying that. And so I want to kind of first start and say, this is why I say it's a mistake, even though part of me actually does firmly believe there are no mistakes, and that these mistakes actually lead us to more opportunities for growth. And I've also sensed when the universe is like, really, this is a bad idea, and I've overridden it and I've kept going. So I say that it was a mistake because it wasn't a marriage that I was going into for love. I was not committing fully to my life. It was a business deal that I thought was going to benefit both of us because I allowed myself to believe things that weren't true. And it was someone I was never in love with. Like, had we lived in a state where we could have had an annulment, then we could have had it annulled because it was never consummated. Like, it was a business deal. We hugged after our vows. Like, we didn't even kiss. This was a friend. It was my best friend, but it was a friend. And it led to a lot of catastrophe after that. So I would just love to hear, like, from an energetic perspective, what are you picking up and what are you noticing there, Carrie? And what made you giggle and say that it wasn't a mistake?
So many like ping, ping, pings going on. That's usually what happens when I work with somebody or have a conversation, and it's great that you're asking, okay, what are you getting? And I giggle because I've had a similar experience. And through human eyes, our failed marriages look like that was a stupid mistake. Why did I do that? What a regret. And it actually took me 10 years to realize what a blessing. Thank goodness I did that because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about energy. I would probably be, you're gonna laugh, but I'd probably be a Bible thumping Carrie, who I actually used to be when I was in my 20s. Um, like it's just so bizarre. So these books that I've written talk about having a human experience versus a spiritual experience, or having spiritual versus human. So, of course, in the human eyes, your marriage looked like, why did I do that? But in spiritual eyes, it probably was something that catapulted you into who you are today, right? Obviously. Um, I can even take that a little bit further if you want from my own experience. Okay, I had this lady come and teach in our studio one day, and she she said that our souls are sluts. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said they just want to experience everything. And so you and I, when we were souls, we probably said we're going to have a big impact on the planet this time around. Like, I know you've been here before, and I know I have too, and so somebody who is around us, possibly, this is just my interpretation, you don't have to believe what I believe. Somebody probably said, a soul, well, I'll help you do that if you want. Like, I'll give you that experience if you want. Because when we come back into a human form, we don't remember why we came here. And we need that big shakeup, like a big relationship breakup. That's usually what happens, or a health issue, or something quite traumatic to like shake us and wake us to remember why we came here. So I believe that my ex-husband was a soul beside me, and he said, "Well, I'll help you have that experience. It's going to be painful, but I'll help you." And so when I was 20, I got married, and by 26, I was divorced. And it was the biggest, ugliest thing ever, because in my mentioned Christian background, while divorce was wrong, like friends dropped off and life was like upside down. My parents didn't even talk to me for a while, and they finally like started, even came for a visit. Like everything was hard, and it felt wrong, and I thought I was losing my mind, actually. So when you look at it with those spirit eyes, that turn, that shift is what was needed for me to see the real me and to come out and start to live the life that I really wanted but didn't know how. Like, I didn't have the parents to support support who I'm supposed to be in this lifetime. In fact, it was a little bit of the opposite. It was a little bit of suppression of who I'm supposed to be because they didn't really understand it. So that big shakeup was needed. Yeah.
And that's true of a lot of humans. There's a Tony Robbins
Yes.
quote. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it basically is the gist of this is that humans are not going to change until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same.
Ooh,
And that
that's a
was
good one.
100% true in my case. So you're right. The marriage was a huge part of what led to my disability, which has led me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And actually, the last podcast episode I published when we're recording this, there'll be another one in between. But I did a solo episode inviting people to look at what has pain given them in their lives, because that was the hardest time in my life
Yep.
that I can recall. Like, it was awful for so
Yeah.
many reasons, and a lot of them were on me, for sure. And that was really hard to face. But had I not gone through all of that, I wouldn't have the compassion I have today. I wouldn't have the patience. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had the balls to leave corporate and become the person that I'm meant to be. Because
Totally.
corporate was a great way for me to continue to deny who I was, because the pay was so great and I felt like I was helping on a lot on a certain level, but it wasn't that deep soulful impact that I really was called to have.
Mhm.
And so I had to break out of that. And it took me being on my ass for 6 months disabled to do that work. Like, I started doing it a couple months into disability. Like, I can't keep doing this.
Mhm.
Like, this is just too much. And within a few weeks of doing the work, I was no longer disabled, just to be clear. It just took me a while to get off my ass and get the motivation to go. But
Mhm.
all of it ties back to energy. And what do you say about, like, I was saying before, I don't remember if we did it when we were recording or not, but energetic misalignments, is that a real thing?
Probably.
And it could be with people or events. Like I was saying with that, my intent around my marriage was not in alignment with my true self. And then
Yeah.
there's also been people I feel may not be in energetic alignment with me. And I'm wondering, like, am I selling myself rather short, or is this a real thing in your experience?
There's something that's coming up that I'm not even sure it's going to answer your question, but I feel I have to speak it. Um, so remember when you went through your divorce and how angry you were at your partner and how much hatred you had towards them?
Yep,
And
very well.
that took so many years to like work through that. And just going back to that's the human response, going back to the spiritual response, the spirit response, the soul response. Um, that person, that soul loved you so much that they said, yes, I will help you have that experience, even though they won't remember it. But when you say, can you be off energetically, misaligned? Um, it feels like you can't. Like the bigger picture has your entire back, even when humanly it feels as that's not possible. Like, and I'm so stuck in my emotions, my hatred, my absolute anger and frustration. And yet the bigger picture was that love? Was that, you know,
Hmm. Yeah, I get what
right?
you're saying. Yeah. And it does answer my question that it's more of a human construct, that there's misalignment, the same way it's a human construct that there's mistakes. And if we look at it from a
Mm,
spiritual level, there are no mistakes. There is no
yeah.
misalignment. Everything is for us at all times, even when it feels against us, it's not. And you had said something earlier, and this was a concept that I personally pondered for years. And it's only been within, like, probably the last two, since getting introduced to cognitive movement, that I got it at a whole new level. And you had said that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. What does that mean to you, Carrie? Because, like I said, I pondered that statement. I had heard that early on. I went, huh? The first time I heard it was 2012 when I got a little boy to skydive legally when he was 12 because he had a brain tumor. And it was a beautiful, wonderful day. But it was within that experience that I recall first being introduced to being a human or being a spirit to a being having a human experience versus the other way around.
Yeah. The first time I heard that quote was, or that sentence was from a chiropractor. My new husband is a chiropractor, and he would drag me to all these seminars. And um, this one guy was talking about this, and I had the same response at first. I'm like, no, 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 I'm human. Like, can't you see me? I am human. I'll have my spiritual experience. But the more I started working with the human during my work, with mostly massage, but some energy work too, I realized that we're so much more than flesh and blood. There's more going on here. We do have um, a soul and a spirit, and I can show people that through their own energy. Like, most of our energy fields are a good like arm's length away from our body, and really our body is inside the energy field, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But the field is there first. The other way I can make sense of it is the people in my life who have passed away, and how you still sense them, like you're still sensing their spirit. So for me, I believe they dump off their body and their spirit keeps going. And I've felt this with my loved ones, and I still have had, I know it sounds weird and creepy, but I've still had conversations with them, and it's two-way, it's not one, and I've had it confirmed. I remember one time I was out for lunch, and it was about a week after my grandma passed, and we were very close. And I remember telling my grandma before she passed, come and see me in my dreams. And if it's possible, like, you're still trying to figure it out. And your humanness says, well, you can't do that. Like,
Right.
but I'm going to tell everybody, come and see me in my dreams. So anyway, she would. And I was out for lunch with a lady who's very intuitive, mediumship abilities. And she stops mid-sentence. She goes, oh, I'm supposed to just tell you that your grandma's here and she's so happy you're still talking to her because the rest of the family isn't. And I was like, huh, okay. Well, it was such confirmation that, the spirit lives on.
Yeah.
Like, um, one of the first times I ever thought that we reincarnate, like you have your soul and spirit, is when I saw a little child, 5 years old, play piano like he's been playing for 60 years. Have you ever experienced that? When you see like a child prodigy, it's like, how do they know that? They don't even have enough time on the planet to learn all that.
Right.
So to me, that means, yes, our spirit keeps going, and it does bring back a little memory. Usually not the memory that, oh, okay, you're gonna do good things this time around. You're gonna live a less superficial life. It's gonna be a little more in depth. Like, you don't always remember that part, and you need that shakeup. But anyways, that's my ramblings about having a a spiritual life in a human body.
And your understanding and your explanation is similar to what I understand as well. So there's a couple books I want to reference. I'll probably put them in the show notes as well, but I want to make sure I highlight Carrie's books because they're amazing as well. But
Mm.
Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, they kind of talk about this. And that one of the explanations, on top of these kids are already doing a lot of practice, but you're right. You see a 5-year-old at a piano and they're busting out Beethoven. It's like, what?
Right? Yeah.
But my understanding is until the prefrontal cortex is there, we actually do have more memory of what we did in former lives. We just don't normally have adults or other people that are going to bring that into our consciousness. And so it fades as the prefrontal cortex gets developed at age 6 and then gets fully developed in our 20s. But it takes from age 6, 7 to our 20s to fully develop. And that's a piece that helps block that memory. And through various ayahuasca ceremonies and different spiritual advisors and consultations I've had over the years, I've been told many times that I don't have to come back again. I don't know how I feel about that, but I've been told that I'm an old soul, and I'm actually going to try to bust out see what happens with my artistic ability when I just let the cognitive movement flow through me, because I can see clearly in my mind's eye that the picture when I did my last ayahuasca ceremony a little over a year ago now, I asked a question, something around the amount of lives I has had or something, and she was like, your soul's infinite. Like, get used to it. There's no escape. I was like, oh shit, there's no escape. And I'm like, oh wait, if there's no escape, then there's nothing to escape from. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's like, well, how many times have I been here? And so she showed me, she's like, your soul is infinite, and showed me something I can't put into words that I could only actually put into a drawing. So I'm going to try that at some point. But
Wow.
it was infinity. Like, I was looking at infinity, and it was my soul, and it was all the iterations in the past and all the iterations that may have happened in the past, because it's time's only linear in the third dimension. When we get into other dimensions, it's no longer linear. We have a lot of scientific proof around this, actually. This is not just woo stuff. There's a whole lot of quantum physics stuff out there that actually gives scientific evidence behind what Carrie and I are talking about. But it was amazing, and it was really comforting for me to realize. And it helped let go of a lot of things that were holding me back in ways I can't really explain, but it helped me really focus on why I'm here. It's like, okay, this is what I chose to do in this life. This is what I have intentionally chosen for myself. This is the energy in which I want to show up. So as you started to progress on this journey, actually, I wanted to share one other thing that goes in line with what you said. So I like to talk to spirit guides as well, too. And this was in my yard yesterday.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's a bluebird feather or blue jay.
Oh,
And so I
wow.
looked up what the symbolism was. And, I've been going through a little bit of extra emotional stress with a situation that has a lot of emotional power behind it. But the symbolism of this was, it was a loved one giving a message to someone who really needed encouragement to take a positive step forward from a difficult situation. I was immediately saw that. I'm like, thank you. Thank you to whoever sent this. It was beautiful.
Oh, I love that. I love it when you get those kind of messages, and I love that we have the internet to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Google.
This
Hey,
is,
Google, help.
I feel like I know the meaning for myself, but I want to, actually get some confirmation. That's pretty cool.
So what were you, I know you talk about some of these in your book, and I really want to shift over to that as well. What were some of the experiences that helped you highlight that you are indeed a spiritual being having a human experience, Carrie? What were some of the things that made you realize that were manifesting in physical symptoms? I'm thinking of a couple, I think you may have actually gone to England is a story that's coming to mind. Am I remembering that correctly?
Mhm. Yes, way back 20 years ago already. Oh my gosh. My husband and I, we sold everything we owned, and we decided to have an adventure, and we leased a chiropractic clinic in um, Sutton, Surrey, England. And it was with a team of people, and we went and had this life, and our plan was 10 years, and about year 1.5, I'm like, I don't know if I like this anymore. It was really hard. Like, I missed my family. I finally felt what homesickness was like, and I had no friends really, like their acquaintances. Everything was so different, and I don't know, I wasn't sure I wanted this. And I was seeing a massage therapist at the time, and she said to me, well, would you like some energy work today? And I'm like, like, what's energy work? And she said, well, Reiki. And I just thought, that's so evil, because that was my upbringing.
Yeah.
I now teach Reiki. But anyways, so I gave her permission. She did some work on me, and I felt nothing, but I was probably too terrified to feel anything, thinking that the devil was coming inside of me or something. I don't know. So, anyways, um, it wasn't in what she did, but it was more in what she said and how she interpreted my body's energy system that made the hugest impact on my life. She said, you can either pick up your roots in Canada and plant them in England or take yourself back to Canada. That's what your body is trying to tell you. And I guess I should back up. When I came into her session, she said, Ma, you look haggard. And I'm like, oh, okay. But what I was experiencing physically was actually this extreme itchiness from my knees down. And I couldn't control it. And I didn't know what it was caused by. And I knew I could go get some steroid cream to help it, but it wasn't caused by a lack of steroid cream in my body. So I didn't want to go that route. Like, I wanted to get to the root of it. And she did. And 6 months later, we're back in Canada, and I've never felt that since, ever. And
Wow.
so she taught me Reiki 1 and 2 before I left, which was really cool for me now, knowing a little bit more about Reiki, because Reiki was passed down kind of like the Chinese whisper. Like, they never kept notes or anything. And so she was quite close to Dr. Asui. Like, she was about 4 or 5 down. And so she had an unfiltered version, compared to the North American version, I guess, if that makes any sense. But yeah, she started me on my energy journey of knowing that there's something more that our body is trying to say, rather than, yeah, you're itchy, go get some
Yeah.
cream. That makes sense. But I felt that in my practice too, like doing massage. I remember this one client who she circulated through our office. We had about 6 massage therapists at the time. And she came and saw me last, and she had just some shoulder neck pain, and it wasn't being resolved. And while I was working on her, typical massage treatment, back, shoulders, neck, pecs, I kept hearing that her left shoulder was rotating inward to protect her heart, and there was something really deep, some hurt that she was struggling with. And that's the body's response. The body's really brilliant, and the body loves us so much. It tries to protect us. And so this was coming up, but as a regulated massage therapist in our country, we can't go and say, well, actually, your body's trying to protect your heart because something must have happened there. And but I had my hand on the door, and I was opening the door to be done the session. And she said to me, is there anything else that you could tell me about my body? Because she was just like, I give up. I don't know what to do anymore. Kind of like my itchy legs. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna walk through this door, even though I shouldn't, like, professionally. But so I prefaced it. I said, this is out of my scope of practice, but this is what I'm getting off your body. And I tell her what I felt, and she started crying. And so then it connected. And she told me about a broken marriage, and the guy just, like, totally financially abused her and verbally abused her emotionally. And yeah, it that was another. I like how you changed your podcast, catapulted me into um another modality that I needed to learn, which was medical intuition, because that's what it is, really. Like, you're reading the body's messages to get to the root problem. Like, I could massage her for years and years and years, and still she'd have that shoulder issue. But if she could start dealing with that hurt, that relationship hurt, her body probably would go back into its normal state, its restful state, its peaceful state. So that's the stuff that lights me up. I love finding those things that here's the root. Let's work on this now. And that is actually one reason why I wanted to get out of massage therapy, because it was still a very superficial modality. I love massage, like I could have one every day, but there's so much more to the body that the body wants to tell us. And it has messages, and I know I can read them. And so why not offer the world these gifts and let the massage therapists do their thing right now? So,
Wow. So, of
yeah.
all the examples you could have given, Carrie, this is just kind of proof of the energetic connection. So, my left shoulder used to curl forward, and I was told the same thing that it started to do. And by the way, it started to do that when I was married, which was
Mm,
only 10 months. It took me longer to divorce them than marry them. So, the only reason it lasted 10 months is because it took 6 months to get a divorce. But that's when it started to happen, and I actually had
mm,
frozen shoulder for a little while, and there it's still a slight bit turned in, but one thing I've realized about myself is I have a hard time letting go of the past, and I'm still working through that and figuring out what keeps me there because it doesn't make any sense. But I know that I'm slower to let go of things than others, but like this doesn't bother me anymore. Like there's no pain. I can feel it slightly, like maybe this much far forward from the other shoulder. Like, and for those who
yeah.
are just listening, I'm holding up something that's about a quarter, maybe an eighth of an inch. Like, it used to be that I have to go like way throwing the shoulder back to get it even with the other one. And like, I've even looked back at videos. I'm like, oh, I was having a bad shoulder day because it'll be like, it'll be out of kilter. And if I listen and I'm aware, I can actually go back and say, yeah, I was feeling very protective, because if I feel more vulnerable, my shoulder will start to do that. And when I
Mm,
start worrying about being able to continue to support myself, entrepreneurship is a little bit of a roller coaster till you get it going, and there's lots of
mhm.
highs and lows, and the lows are terrifying. And my left side of my back will lock up when I worry about keeping myself above water. And it's amazing. But I love that this is what we're talking about, because learning to talk to my body was the most important skill I had to learn to get out of pain and go from disability to be able to do a half marathon. And it's exactly what Carrie's talking about. It's learning how to tune into those signals.
Oh, our body, I don't know why we don't learn this when we're little, but our body loves us so much
Mhm.
that, you know, I don't have children, you don't have children, and I always thought you can't understand unconditional love unless you have children. So I'm like, oh, I'll get some cats. So I got some cats, but I know if you abuse a pet, they're not gonna love you. That is unconditional love is loving even though you're not so nice to it.
Mhm.
Think of your body and how many times you've abused it. Just even think of how many times have you ever been drunk? You've poisoned yourself.
There's a lot of reasons I stopped drinking 6 years ago.
I know. And so the body, instead of saying like nasty things about you and giving up, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go to bat for you, and I'm gonna keep you alive, and I'm going to like, get this poison out of your body, and the liver starts to do its thing, and the kidneys and everything, and all of a sudden you're okay, I feel good now. And some of us do it again the next weekend, but you
Or
know,
the next day.
yeah, but it works so hard for us. And it why don't we communicate more with it and show it the love and respect that it really deserves? I just taught a course on this actually, and we talked about our body loving us unconditionally, um and how to talk to it. Most people don't even know that they should talk to it. And I give them 4 questions, and I say, this is how to start the communication with your body and how to start the relationship. Because, okay, we'll just do the questions. One is, body, are you hungry? 2, are you thirsty? Body, are you thirsty? 3, body, are you tired? And 4, body, do you have to go to the bathroom? And they're just simple questions that if you ask yourself this throughout the day, you're going to give your body what it needs. These are very basic. And then you get into like, body, do you need to go outside? Do you need to move? Do you need some salt? Do you need to be around people? Do you need to be alone? What do you need right now? Do you need a massage? Do you need to just veg out for a bit, like watch TV? Or do you need to be inspired? Do you need to listen to music? Like what do you need? I have this hippie client. Oh my gosh, I love him and his wife. And I remember saying to him, no, he was trying to figure out something on his own body. And so I was giving him some of the hits that were coming to me as I was working on him. And then we started laughing because he's like, don't you just hate it when you can't figure it out? And for him and I to, that's our mentality. But for most people, it's like, oh, I don't feel good, I'm going to go to the doctor. And you give that power to the doctor and let them figure it out. Oh my gosh, take that power back. You just start the communication. Your body's going to tell you what it needs and what it wants. But just starting it seems tricky for people. And I think it's because our lives are so noisy, and we need to like get them a little bit quieter so that we can hear the answer to our questions.
Absolutely. And people were talking about the danger of distraction 40 years ago, before we even had iPhones or all the things that grab our attention now. Like we as humans have less of an attention span than a goldfish at this point. No joke. That was what I learned from my speech my speech coach several years ago, and she does some brilliant work around psychology of the voice. But it was like different inflections and ways to hold your audience, because you're dealing with a 7-second attention span, so you have to regain their attention every 7 seconds. Easy, right? Yeah. But it amazes me, like, how easy it is to get disconnected from that mind body connection. And it makes sense, and you see some of this in Canada as well. In the US, it's really bad. Big pharma pretty much rules, government rules. I'm saying a lot of things that could piss a lot of people off, but it's kind of the truth here. We have this whole medical facility system. I use air quotes around that because it's not really a very workable system, that's teaching us to band-aid and cover up symptoms rather than going deep into the body, looking for the root, like Carrie was just talking about. Like, why are my legs itching? Like, I don't need steroids. Steroids are anti-inflammatory. What is causing the inflammation is going to give you way more bang for your buck. The steroid cream may alleviate your symptoms right then and there, but they will come back until you've done the work to figure out what the root cause is that continues to build that inflammation that's making you itch. Until you go and do that, you're not going to find the answer. And that's what the medical system, the traditional medical system, the allopathic medical system is relying on, because you're a customer. You're not a patient. Just be clear on that. You're a customer, which means if you're a repeat customer, you're a good customer. So kind of put that in your heads for a minute there. But I love what you say about the exercise of talking to the body. And I've talked about this on other episodes. And if you haven't been doing that, your body's not going to trust you out of the gate. You need to establish that trust. It's not going to talk to you until it trusts you. And so that's brilliant that you just start talking to it. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you tired? Like, what do you need?
Yeah.
And it will start to answer you, because you're asking simple questions right out of the gate. You're going to be establishing it when you aren't in a stress situation. Whereas, like, when I started to tune into my back, like now I can tune in, and I've even been mid podcast episode, we've hit a topic that was making one part of my back lock up. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. That was what was making my back lock up, because I've developed that trust and that mind body connection for all the cognitive movement I've done and through all the connection with my body that I've worked on, that I've reestablished that. And this is after decades of abuse. Like I had drug abuse, I was promiscuous, I had a drinking problem that I didn't really realize, and I took tons of pharmaceuticals and other stuff. I've done a lot of damage to my body. I gave my body a lot of reasons not to trust it. And I had to rebuild that trust. And once I did, it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. And thank you for that reminder, because I went with some friends on Sunday and we played on this giant rope aerial ground, and I pulled my left hip. And I was thinking today, I was like, this bothered me running too. I was like, maybe I should get a test. And I'm like, why am I going to get a diagnosis? Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in there. I just need to talk to it and fix it. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm actually like, as we're having this conversation, my hip's like, hey, yeah, stretch me, please. So I'm actually doing that as we're talking now. I'm like just sitting with my legs crossed over and my hips going, ah. And again, I've learned and I've developed that mind body connection is one of the best things you can do. I love that technique, Carrie. And then
Yeah.
just expanding, hey, do I want to go outside? What do I want to eat right now? Like
Yeah.
you can just expand in simple stuff. And then, hey, body, why does my back keep acting up?
Yeah.
What do you need? What do we want today? What do you need from me? And it's going to start answering you.
Yeah. There's some people I've worked with and they're like, I can't get an answer. And for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the four basic questions, but they've never um they've never developed a relationship with their body. So you've probably heard of the human pendulum. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
That's what
That's
I
what I
tell
like
them.
for.
Yeah, so really quick, case your listeners have never heard of it. You just stand up, your feet are hip width apart, you bend your knees slightly, and just like programming a pendulum, you program your body and you just say, body, show me a yes. And the body will go forward, backward, side. It'll give you an answer and then just reset. You can even say thank you and say, body, show me a no, and see which direction the body goes to. And then start using it. And then you can get in more creative, like, well, body, do you want a banana or an apple? Like you can ask it more,
Yep.
which is kind of fun. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I play with that a lot. And make sure if you're doing this, ask every time, because
Mm,
it may change direction on you. Like I
yeah.
I wasn't going back and testing. I thought my body was saying no night after night to something. I'm like, when was the last time I asked it what a no was? I'm like, I should probably
Ah.
ask it again. And I'm like, oh, oops, it's been saying yes, and I thought it was a no. Whoop, my bad. So check in every time because it may change. And I actually I've started to think about getting back on the dating sites again. And so I've been asking it which site. I'm like, show me which
Oh,
one is this, show me which one is that. And I'm like, we're gonna repeat this a few times until we're sure.
it's awesome.
Make sure it still gives the answer day after day and it's not just being fickle on in a mood one day.
And then you'll get into their profiles and body, how about this one?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to use that rope aerial place, not really as a test, but I realize it's kind of a test. I just don't like the idea of testing people, but it's a really super fun thing to do. And it would actually teach you a lot because you're in challenging situations. Your adrenaline is going to be going up because you are attached to equipment. Like you've got safety stuff. They do it like it was no joke. We actually didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, but we had so much fun. We're going back again next month. But I was like, this is a great place to bring a date because it's going to see, because you've got teenagers who are yelling at you. Not to be jerks, but if you aren't following safety, and they are on point with safety, which I loved. And safety is overkill 99% of the time, but it's going to save your life that 1% of the time. Like you always want to have on safety be on the overkill side. That's one of the biggest things I learned from skydiving is that you want it for that X factor, that 1% of the time where things don't go the way they're supposed to go. But you and the mind doesn't know the difference between real and fake. So even though you know that you're attached to equipment, as you're standing on these things and your legs are going this way and that way and it's all unstable and you're holding on to ropes and you're using muscles in your body you didn't know you have, you're freaking out a little bit. So how are you going to handle that? So I was like, this is a good way to see because I mean, why waste 6 months with someone if you guys handle things vastly differently in a way that won't mesh well in day-to-day life, like throw a challenge in early, see what happens. How do you deal
Yes.
with it?
That'd be a very intense first date.
The first date, 'cause I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to want to spend 2.5 hours with someone right out of the gate.
Yeah,
Maybe a
coffee.
second or third date of more like, hey, like, you up for doing this to see if we got like, and this isn't like a we're going deep thing, but this is kind of fun. You want to try? Just see what they do. But yeah, lots of different
Mhm.
ways to use the body to get answers for sure.
That's fun.
This has been an awesome conversation. I want to be mindful of time and
Mhm.
not continue this awesome conversation as much as I want to. We will make sure that we have the links to Carrie's books, both of them. It's all about energy, and it's still all about energy. Like I said, her book is the next one on my list after I finish the one that I am reading now. And Carrie, where else can people find you, and what other services do you offer that can help people get in connection with their body or potentially raise, shift, clean their energy?
Yeah, you can jump onto my website, carimoffet.com, CARIMOFFET.com. And I do energy work distantly. I also have a mini tester service that you give me one body part and I'll pick up some of the hits that I get off the body part just to test the waters with energy and your body and give you some idea of what the body is saying. I do have an online course on my website. Yeah, I teach locally, but I'm open to travel too, so.
Awesome. Yes, yes, you definitely are. And we will also include your social media links, but for people listening, can you just let us know what platforms you're on, Carrie, so they can reach out and connect to you as they're listening to this episode?
Yeah, Facebook because I'm old. Carrie Moffet dash It's All About Energy. And Instagram. I believe it's just Carrie Moffet on Instagram. But those are the two that I use the most.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we link to both of those in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to
Oh,
just end with
well, thanks,
one
Katie.
action item as well. What is one thing you would suggest for someone who's trying to make sense of their human experience, their spiritual experience, the energy, symptoms they may be feeling in the body, covering a lot of what we covered today? What would you say is a step that you would recommend for someone who may be feeling a little lost where you were when you were in England going for your first Reiki session?
I have two things. If it doesn't freak you out too much, spend some time alone
Mm.
and enjoy the silence and ask some questions and take a journal and um, start the communication with your body. But if that is too scary for you, get some help. Find a coach. I can offer some coaching. Find an energy practitioner in your area. Um, find someone who can help mentor you through the relationship of your body, mind, and spirit. That would be my advice.
Fantastic advice, Carrie. Thank you so much. That's a great note to end on.
Thanks, Katie. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay.
And thank you, audience, as well, for your time. I know you have a lot of choices of what you can listen to, and I really appreciate your attention on this episode. I'm trusting you got what you needed out of it. Please join me again next week for another amazing episode. And until then, be well.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend and leave a 5-star review, which helps grow the podcast and reach others just like you. While you're at it, connect with Katie on social media. You can find her on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram as @CoachKTDubs. That's CoachKTDubs. This has been The Catapult Effect with Katie Wrigley. Thanks for listening.